Jumbo.
Jumbo.
Welcome. You are on Black Power Media and you are listening to Operation Power, a voice for Black radical politics and revolutionary change. We're so glad you're with us. We've got an exciting program today. Our topic is They Stole Us. Deed theft. Deed theft. They stole us. Now they're stealing our homes. We've got two exciting guests that are going to be with us. And I just want to get our program started. My name is Inez Barron, and I am the co-host along with my husband, the bold, the outspoken, the indomitable, the one, the only, the unbought, the unbossed.
Charles Barron, and every week I humbly say it is indeed my honor to be on with the stunningly beautiful, intellectually brilliant Inez Barron.
Thank you.
43 years. 43 years. My wife of 43 years. Happily married Black man.
Thank you. Once again, our topic is Stop Deed Theft. They stole us. Now they're stealing our homes. And we've got two guests that are going to be with us. We've got Evangeline Byers, who will be with us, and Sister Betty Davis. They'll be joining us shortly. But we believe in our tradition that as when we gather, we call our ancestors. We want our ancestors who have made so many sacrifices to get us to the point where we are, who have given us the torch to carry on. We acknowledge them and we want their presence. We want their spirits to be with us and help to continue to guide us. So we do have a libation video that we want to share with you at this time.
Important happens without a libation. And so for this very important presentation, we begin by the pouring of libation. We pour libation first to our first ancestor, to that hidden one who, though hidden, manifests in all things as all things, that God-goddess idea in the universe by any and all names. To our first ancestor, we pour libation, Ashe. We pour libation too to our ancestors because they were the first people on this planet, mothers and fathers of all mankind, flashpoint of the human family. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to our ancestors because they were the ones who first gave birth to the idea of civilization, knew we would need a form of governance, and they nurtured that idea along the Nile until it reached its zenith in Kemet. There they built these gigantic monuments as evidence of that great civilization, and they carved instructions on the walls of temples and tombs for us, so we would never forget. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to our ancestors because over time they put together all the tenets of civilization and they took those ideas and left the continent. They were the people of the first Exodus. They left Africa and went all over the world and peopled the world. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. We pour libation too to our ancestors because they did not sit on their laurels. They continued to improve, continued to evolve, and at each point of evolution, they again would leave the continent and settle and resettle the planet. They met themselves coming and going. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to those ancestors because over time, they found themselves the object of a forced exodus. When they were kidnapped, shackled, cargoed, shipped out of Africa and enslaved in diasporas around the world. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to the ancestors left at home, the very young, the aged, the infirm, left to reinvent themselves, depleted of us, human resources. But they were enjoined by us in the diasporas, both objects of a global myopia that ruptured the soul of a people as it ravaged a continent. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to those ancestors because over time they began to remember who and what they were. Because no matter where they had been dropped off, they still retained bits and pieces of who and what they were. They retained that African core that described them. They began to remember bits and pieces of a song. They began to remember lines from a rhythm. They began to remember dances that they did in ancient times. They began to remember those ancient drum beats that they now beat out on bare skin. And so to those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to them because they then began to teach each other They began to resurrect and reconstruct that history and that culture. They became the new Africans wherever they were. They became the new teachers, preachers, archaeologists, the new singers, dancers, the new drummers, the new Jalia. They reconstructed that history and our culture and became new Africans everywhere. So to those ancestors, we pour libation. I shave. Pour libation.
You're muted. You're muted. Unmute, please.
Thank you. Asheo.
Try it again.
Once again, we give honor and homage to our ancestors. You're listening once again to Operation Power, a voice for Black radical politics and revolutionary change, coming to you each Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're so pleased to have been invited to be a part of the Black Power Media Reloaded family. We are Operation Power, and we have a brief video that we want to share with you, which gives you a little bit about our history. So our technician, our engineer, will share that with you now.
Operation Power stands for people organizing and working for empowerment and respect.
Operation Power is a grassroots social justice organization founded by local community stakeholders, which includes activists, organizers, and leaders who understand that the system as it is currently structured is destroying us and our communities.
The system, the capitalist system, one that promotes human greed over human need, one that promotes profit over people, needs to be dismantled. These local community organizers recognize capitalism needs to be destroyed and replaced with socialism.
Operation Power was founded in 1997 with the understanding that uprooting capitalism needs to begin locally. Operation Power understood that our communities are the perfect vehicle to dismantle this parasitic capitalist system brick by brick, and the economic, political, and cultural institutions and other systems in place in our local community infrastructure. Whether it's the local school board, community board, city council, state assembly, all represents mechanisms to control the destiny of our people.
Thank you so much. Operation Power. And we know that you may have an extensive library, and there are some books we would like for you to add to your collection, to the collection of books that you have. The first one that we want to invite you to get, you can be purchased all of these books online at Barnes & Noble, is the first one is Speaking Truth to Power. And it is a compilation of articles and essays written by Charles Barron. I encourage you to get that. The next one is It's Not You, It's Capitalism, Why It's Time to Break Up and How to Move On. And that is written by Malika Jabali. And it's a great presentation of some of the constructs of capitalism and an examination of that. The next book is actually a novel. It is written by Kevin Barron, and it is called Black Rising. It's a page turner, believe me. When you start it, you won't put it down until you finish. The next book is the second in a trilogy written by Kevin Barron, and it is entitled Black Rising, Home and Abroad. It's a continuation of the theme and the characters in the first book. And the third book in the trilogy is called The Threat, and it brings all of those previous themes to a very exciting conclusion. So we encourage you to go online at Barnes & Nobles and purchase those books. Well, here we are. Stop deed theft. They stole us. Now they're stealing our homes. We've got two great guests that are going to be with us today. We've got Sister Evangeline Byers, who is a community and labor activist. There she is, Evangeline Byers.
Hello.
Welcome. And
Thank you.
Thank you. And our next guest is Sister Betty Davis, who is, there you are, Betty, a community activist and a retired principal, been in education and in so many community events for decades. And we invite you both to our program. We're so glad you're here, and we're going to get started now. We know that that's one of the ways that Black people improve themselves and have a legacy is through home ownership. And we know during the financial crisis, the government bailed out the banks, gave
That's right.
them billions of dollars for
Mhm.
obvious theft, and they were complicit in much of what was being stolen at that time and the scams that they perpetrated. When we were in the office, state assembly office and the city council office, we had a dedicated person in our office to help people fight to keep their homes out of foreclosure. So I have to call the name of Mr. Melvin Faulkner.
Oh, yeah.
He kept 100+ families from losing their homes because he went and made sure that the court saw that there was a lot of scams that were going on and that these people deserved to be in their homes. So he was very much effective in that and kept those families in their homes. But we know that home ownership is one of the ways that we are able to pass wealth to those who are coming behind us. So we're so pleased that we're talking about this topic today.
And as we talk about deed theft, just remember we are an African people, and they stole us from the continent, used our labor. We were a commodity for Europe, they colonized Europe. We were a commodity. There would be no Europe without African people. They stole our as a commodity, and they stole the resources of Africa, the gold, the diamonds, the cobalt, all of that stuff. Then brought us here and had a nerve to use us, non-compensated labor, slavery, to build the foundation of capitalism. We go through all of that, and guess what? We liberate ourselves to an extent from plantation slavery, and we build communities like Rosewood, communities like
Tulsa.
Tulsa, that's the one I was looking for.
And right here in Brooklyn, we had Weeksville,
Weeksville in Brooklyn. We
Seneca Village.
Seneca. We built all of that, and they took that from us. That would be theft. They took all of that. Now here we are in Brooklyn, New York, with two powerful sisters. And let me tell you how proud we are of both of you. Evangeline, you're providing the leadership, and Betty, you're providing some great guidance. But you two put deed theft on the map in New York City and across the country. The mayor dealing with deed theft. The governor, you're putting pressure on her to have a moratorium on evictions. The attorney general with her jive self is not doing right by y'all, but you put it on her table too. And the PA in Brooklyn made him hire more lawyers to address deed theft, and you couldn't keep the pressure on. So Evangeline, I want to start off with you, and just give us some background on who you are and how this stuff is moving and some of the effects of the movement that you and Betty are leading. And I'm a part of it too. We are working together, but you start us off. Go ahead, Evangeline.
Yeah, so I came into this work of deed theft, by accident almost. We were having a community forum on how to beat the machine, and a bunch of deed theft victims walked in who were in distress and needed help. And, we began to look at what it was that they were saying was going on, and look at the conditions that they were living under, and what it was that they were going through. And as a result of that, what I discovered and really sitting down and listening and then just going in and seeing what was happening in the court system, it is way worse than anything that someone can even explain to you. To actually see the horrors of it is almost, it's egregious, right? It's gut-wrenching. It is unfathomable. But we've been going through this for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yes.
And so it's not something that is new. However, in New York City, it is the vehicle that is being used to displace the Black family and the Brown family. And we are at crisis levels right now. Over 1,500 people a
Wow.
month are being evicted
Mm.
in landlord-tenant court. But in that number are homeowners
Mm.
who have been defrauded out of their properties and who are now, through a loophole in the system, being drugged into landlord-tenant court
Mm.
and being evicted as tenants, and their ownership rights and their meritorious defenses are being overlooked.
Mm-hmm. So, Evangeline, help people understand, what do you mean by deed theft? How are they doing this? How do they
So
steal your
deed
deed?
theft,
Yes.
deed theft is a very complex crime. However, there are multiple ways that deed theft occurs. One of the most common ways that everyone always talks about is someone stealing your deed. Well, the way that happens is that they have to go through the ACRA system, right? And in New York City and even across the country, these systems are open to the public. Anybody can go in and file documents unchecked with no identification
Mm.
and claim ownership of anybody's home at anybody's time because your records are made public. If they know your block and lot, they can search by your name and they can just go in and file these documents. However, it occurs often to seniors because their homes are paid off. So when you pay off your home and your house no longer has a note on it, it makes it easy for someone to go in, file a deed, and also slap a note and foreclose on you and take your home that way.
Mm.
Also through Article 81 guardianships. When people have a guardian or they're placed under guardianship, the guardian becomes you. That means that they can sell your property, they take over all your finances.
Mm-hmm.
You now are in their possession. And a lot of it happens that way. Also, there are partition cells. When someone passes away and they say that they're the heir to the property, deed thieves often seek out when a person dies who were the relatives. And even if the relative did not have real heir rights to the property, they will sell it to them and say, hey, I'll give you $5,000 if you sign over this property. And people sign. It's not really a legitimate sale, but because they did that, the thieves go in to Acris again, upload these documents, and now come to your home and say that they're the owner. And so these are some of the ways in which deed theft occurs. Also through mortgage fraud, when people find themselves falling behind in their mortgage. We've uncovered just recently, as we're looking at the ways in which this happens, you have to be careful when you're called in by the court and they tell you you're coming in to do a mediation with the bank. Because once you come in and do that mediation, you give up all your information, all your financial information. They know everything about you. And usually at that point afterwards is when the foreclosure happens. A
Mm.
lot of times the bank never shows up for the mediation. You keep showing up, you're bringing all your documents, and then through the back end, your property's taken that way. So
Mm.
there's so many ways that deed theft occurs. Forged documents, someone forging your signature. People have had their homes stolen right at the closing table, going through a whole situation. So there's so many different ways, but they target our community because we are not suspecting of it, and because there has been no real education and awareness around it.
Mhm.
So many people are subject to it.
What about water bills? Could they, like,
Oh yes, through the lien sale, water bills. Yes, that's another way. You miss one water bill payment. The water bill payment could have been $500. It balloons to 20,000, and the next thing you know, you don't have a home anymore. Um, Fraud on service, saying that they served you papers, and then they steal your home that way. So there's so many different ways that deed theft occurs, which is why real education and awareness not only happens in forums, but also for first-time home buyers. This
Mhm.
should be a part of every first-time home buyer seminar that they have is that when you buy your home, how do you protect yourself and keep it? And that's not something that's a part of the educational process when it comes to home ownership.
Well, we just had somebody say greetings. They're tuning in from London, and someone else
Okay.
that there he is. Greetings from the UK, North London. Respect. And then somebody else said, I keep a lock on my deed. I have locks on my deeds. So one of the things. Mr. Betty, are you the one who, when we were talking, you mentioned that why doesn't the little company catch this? Or why doesn't the title company catch this? That's another.
Because the title companies are in on it.
They in on
right?
the problem.
The title companies, most of the title companies. Remember, whenever a house is sold, it has to have a title company has to be involved. And so when you see homes being sold, when there are clearly issues around ownership, clouded title, and the sale still goes through, that means that the title company was in on it. And a lot of times the deed thieves own the title companies. And so that's another part of why the title companies don't catch it.
Sister Betty, I remember when we were talking, you were saying, Brother Charles, this is happening all over the country. And talk a bit about the importance of this issue as it relates to our liberation, as it relates to revolution and radical change because of the value of home ownership and taking on a system that's trying to take homes from us. So if you could speak to that somewhat, Sister Betty.
Yeah, first of all, I want to use a phrase that I learned from the African People's Socialist Party and Chairman Omali Yeshitela, that concept of dual and contending powers.
Yes.
And I also want to say we are in a capitalist country. And in a capitalist society, property is a means of wealth. And it's a means of amassing intergenerational wealth. And so when you talk about dual and contending powers, we're not saying that every homeowner is a capitalist, but we are saying when we came out of what they considered chattel slavery, one of the things we got, a number of people did get their 40 acres and a mule. And the minute we got that property, the nature of dual and contending powers under colonialism and the nature of European, I will say, moral degradation is such that they immediately try to re-enslave us. And I want to give you an example from a modern point of view. In Roosevelt, Long Island, black towns, they get the least return on their property. And I'm taking this straight from a book called The Black Tax by Professor Andrew Call. Their home ownership does not give them the same quality public school system, does not give them the same services with regard to sanitation, does not give them the same services with regard to any of the services you get based on your tax structure. This has traditionally been so for people of African heritage in this country. We can have the property and we pay 3 times as much tax on that property, but we do not get the services back. So one of the phrases Chairman O'Malley uses is we're like an ATM for America anytime they need it. They can come and charge us all kinds of extra tax and give us nothing in the form of services that every citizen is entitled to. And I want to illustrate this by saying, what's the first thing Mandani did when he realized he wasn't going to get any extra money for his so-called budget? He starts saying, oh, I guess I'll have to raise property taxes. And I know that's going to affect the Black community more than the rest of the communities in New York City. There it is, absolute evidence of the Black tax. And so within that concept, someone like Evangeline is extremely important.
Yes.
I cannot emphasize enough her way of being. She's able to listen, and I'm saying this to everybody who's on this call who wants to be an organizer. She's able to listen to everybody, no matter how off the wall they sound. She's able to take what people say after she has listened and create a plan of action. When she has a question, she knows, hey, this one is a bit much. I'm going to go back and consult somebody who's already done this. And of course, that's been you, Charles. And within that context, I want to say to people that we're in the best of times and we're in the worst of times. This is truly a tale of two cities. It's the city of the African American who, coming out of slavery, earned every penny, every ounce of land they got. But the method of incarcerating us has changed. Instead of coming in the middle of the night with the Ku Klux Klan and hanging us to get our property, they now have this system of going into the bureaucracy and stealing them. No matter how you look at it, it's the same thing. How do you know? Because we're still almost on the same poverty level now, comparatively speaking, as we were coming out of slavery. When we had our 40 acres and a mule, and we can document in some of our books that deal with the black tax that some people did get the 40 acres. The very next thing that happened, Charles, is we grew our products, we grew our crops. We couldn't have a wheelbarrow to take the products to the market. We were forbidden to have a wheelbarrow. The next thing you know, if you're on the road in the middle of the night, anywhere in America coming out of the slavery, they got you and put you on one of these farms, okay, and captured you. Well, the same thing is going on now. If you look at the statistics on incarceration of our people, there it is again. But the worst thing was the subprime loan, because after the subprime loan, as Sister Evangeline said, the government gave the banks a bailout. Within that bailout, in 2009 to 2016, the banks were supposed to pass that on to the homeowners, especially in the Republic of Brooklyn, who were some of the most egregious victims of this stealing. It's out and out stealing. It never happened. How do I know? I was one of those homeowners that went just to be refinanced. And with all of my good credit, Citibank turned me down. Now, let's put that within the context of somebody who has a civil service job but a limited salary. And the taxes, the property taxes are going up. And the electric bills are going up. And they are aging and can't stay on top of the fact that maybe both electric bills came and maybe they didn't. Because you may have more than one electric bill if you own a home. There's the electric bill for the lights in the hallway, and there's your personal electric bill. And the same thing with the water bill. You may have a different water bill from time to time. Some will be higher, some will be lower, depending on the season. All of these normal life issues impact on an elder, and the companies that are stealing our deeds are aware of this. We are the most studied people in the history of the world because we are their ATM. And anytime they get into any kind of economic trouble, they just use the black tax on us. And so for that reason, this is why what you did in East New York must become a template and studied. But in addition to that, we have to turn the tables on them. They use the RICO laws to take our warriors from us. They use the RICO laws to go after the Panthers and all these brothers who fought for our human rights in the 60s. And since the 60s, when they did away allegedly with Jim Crow, everything has gotten worse for us. Because they do not want us to take advantage of the blood that's in the ground that the Panthers shed so that we could go to the next level economically and politically in this country. And everybody's got to look at that. Because if you look at that, you can see the problem is the solution. And Charles, you gave it to him. So I'm going to shut up and let you tell him what you did.
All right.
Well, she wants you to tell
Go
you what
ahead,
to
Emma.
do. But my point that I
Wherever
wanted
you
to
want to start, you educate.
thank you. As you talked about these major banks that received this, what, $700 billion from
Mm-hmm.
government and was supposed to have it trickle down, and it didn't get down. And these large banks rejected so many Black established institutions who needed help. And there's
Mm-hmm.
one in particular in Bed-Stuy that had an account with one of those large banks for years, and they refused to give them money. But when she went to Carver Bank, they made the arrangement. They gave her what she needed so that her institution would stay afloat and she'd be able to pay her employees. So we've got to remember, our own and our institutions that are in our community, such as Carver Bank, and the work that they can help us do, and that they're there in that regard. And as you
Mm-hmm.
talk about people missing a payment, oftentimes, as you've said, there is no appropriate notice given to the owner.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you get anything that's registered or that you have to sign for that alerts you to the fact that, hey, you missed a payment and we may put you on the foreclosure list. We may want to sell your property. Let me just tell you that our elected officials, particularly city council members, can appeal on behalf of homeowners to have them taken off the list. How do I know? Because that is what we have done in the past. There was an elderly
Wow.
incapacitated, and one of the family members was supposed to be assisting her, and they became slack and lax in what they did. And when we reached out to her and said, you're on the list, she said, what? Johnny So was supposed to do it, and he didn't. And we made an appeal on her behalf, and she was taken off the list, and an arrangement was made so that that can be rectified. But we've got elected officials who are not utilizing their power, who are not
Mm-hmm.
who are not finding those obvious cases or clear cases that need support and need to have consideration done for that.
Can I jump in here for a second?
Sure,
That's just what you guys do. I
Mm-hmm.
had you come and lecture to one of my classes at the College of New Rochelle. And I will never forget how you broke down the tax structure and the citizens' role within the tax structure for them. And all of my class has never forgotten that lecture. As people who are in the underclass, who once they gain any kind of capitalist advantage, these dual and contending powers automatically kick in. Let's face it, this Italian grandmother in Bensonhurst, she's just as forgetful as I am, but nobody is being a predator on her. That's the racial Black tax. And so when we get politicians who don't have our back, like the Irish politicians did for their people, and the Italian politicians did for their people. And here comes Eric Adams. I'm just going to call it out.
Embarrassment, disgrace.
Uh-oh.
Listen to this. In East New York, when I was in the city council, Elba McZeal, this was a group of our people who collectively got together and said, we're going to buy, purchase, take over our apartment building and all of our apartments. They did it. The white man who had it before them had a $5 million back tax and $500,000 in water bill.
That's right.
They came to my office and they said, this is not fair. We just discovered this and we put all this money. We own this now. Now they want to take it back. I got HPD, Housing Preservation Development Commission, sat down with the commissioner. You are not taking this property. He said, well, Barry, what do you think we should do? Eliminate the back tax and eliminate the water bill, and then help them finance rehabbing some of the apartments in the building. And guess what? That's what we did, and that building was saved. Inez, you could tell them quickly about 721. Another
beautiful building, sturdy. These were buildings built in the 1920s and 30s, brick by brick, beautiful parquet floors, 1-bedroom apartments. And the city said to them, listen, you owe oil, you owe electricity, and we're taking you over because you're not able to manage your own building. They said that's not fair. Once again, Charles and I went and negotiated and got those bills resolved, got them eliminated, got them removed. They did not have to pay that stated amount that the city had said was due to them.
And then we have them. 11.
Oh, the Article 11, right. Council members have the ability to advance any property that needs assistance as an Article 11 bill. And they can do that. They've got to show the reasoning behind it. It's not just, oh, we're just being frivolous and just, no. These are people who have been in instances where they have been, in many cases, deceived, or where they had poor management, and they are now entitled to be able to get subsistence from the government to be able to maintain and keep their co-op apartments. These are co-op apartments, condominium co-op apartments.
I just want to say,
I'll take it to you in a second. That Article 11 is critical, because what happened, I was sitting down with the commissioner of HPD. 721 was on the foreclosure list. Right. They were on the list to be foreclosed on. And I said, you got to take them off. I don't know if I could do that, Councilman. I said, no, I'm not asking you. I'm telling you they're going to be taken off. You know why? Because I got the power to do an Article 11, which removes you. And they got taken off the list, and they still have it. I want to get to Evangeline now. Evangeline, a couple of things.
So we often have this conversation about what is happening to us as a people in our communities. Today, a gentleman named Marlon Rice, who's running for state senate, did this video talking about Atlantic Yards project and how, this whole issue around affordable housing, and they're talking about 60% AMI. And it just made me think about the fact that this crisis that we're in, this is on the backs of our own people, right? Who have created these conditions that we're in. And we often tell people when they tell us, oh, there's no place in New York that has affordable housing anymore. I said, well, you ain't been to East New York, right? You need to go over and look at East New York. You need to go do a tour of East New York. It's Black, it has malls, it has new development, it has state-of-the-art community centers, it has all of the things that everywhere else has. The only difference is that it's 100% affordable, right? And this is what could have been in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, but the people who were in charge and in government during that time chose to sell the community out. And now they're all scrambling because they can barely stay in office now, right? Because you basically led to the conditions that we're in now. And so when we look at DFAC and what's happening, we can trace it back to where it has its origin, not only historically, but just in the few decades that it has morphed, especially in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Clinton Hill, Fort Greene, and in the central Brooklyn area. And now all throughout New York, we're getting calls as far as Westchester, the Bronx. In the Bronx, the district attorney's office does not even do any theft cases. Nobody even gets a notice back when they file that anything. Yes, right? Before we did the city count, we went to testify before the city council. Her chief of staff messaged me back to say that we would have a discussion before we went in to do the hearing. The only city council the only district attorney that knew and had a sort of a pulse of what was going on is Melinda Katz from Queens. Prosecuted 22 cases, has 180 cases currently active in her office, and said, yes, I can use the funding to expand our housing unit to deal with theft because it is a serious crime, right? And now in the Brooklyn DA's office, we're getting there.
But look, Evangeline, that's because of you. Me and Betty.
Yeah, that's what I want to emphasize.
We were
She encourages people to be their own attorneys. And it's amazing to me that this racketeering continues, because one of the things that this organization under her leadership has begun to address is the fact that they are now trying to convert homeowners into tenants within their own property and evicting them on that basis. That's the black tax. They don't do this to European American citizens. That's a method of the black tax. And it's only through organization and proper discipline and study in an organization such as this are we going to be able to achieve this. This won't be changed by marching alone.
In 5 years, at the rate of eviction, in the next 5 years, there'll be another 90,000 Black and brown people displaced in New York. Right? At the rate of 1,500 people a month, over the next 5 years, that's what it will be. Now, the judges are saying on the bench in landlord-tenant court, if someone has a deed, unless the Supreme Court reverses it, I have to honor that deed, even if fraud is alleged. Now, we know that that's not true because there are laws, right? There are statutes that basically give the judge the ability to stay the eviction if there is an meritorious defense. They can, from the bench, under their own discretion, if they sense that this is a crime or someone has been defrauded, do something. Don't tell me as a judge you can't do nothing because somebody showed up with a piece of paper and said that they're the owner, right? The problem that we have is that homeowners, although treated as tenants, they don't get the same access to right to counsel as regular tenants. And because most of the time people run into court and file pro se, they cancel out their right to now go when they realize they can get a legal aid attorney and try to get them. But even in legal aid has testified on the record that they no longer have the talent in their offices because there has been a mass exodus due to the fact that they are not paying them the salaries that they're supposed to have because they are not-for-profits. So the benefits that civil servants get, if you make $80,000 a year, their employees, their lawyers don't get that. And so what happens is they leave for better opportunities. They may want to do the work, but they're not there. So in legal aid, there's no attorneys. All of these organizations that say they do the HOT program, nobody is representing deed theft victims. They turn them away all the time. They say the work is too much because the city and the state is not paying what they're supposed to to these lawyers to be able to do the work.
But
right? And it's by design.
I want people to hear this, young lady. I want y'all to hear this across the nation. Because this is happening in your community as well, whether you are aware of it or not. This young lady, along with Sister Betty, sat down with the DA's office in Brooklyn, and he admitted, I know nothing about deed theft. We don't have any deed theft lawyers in my office. Evangeline, Betty, and the rest of the coalition got him to commit to hiring 1 or 2 lawyers to focus on deed theft. He wasn't even aware. Evangeline, I mean, she should have been the DA for deed theft because she had all the information and her lawyers. I want to shift to this. 2 things. We got about 10 minutes left. Give us some of the personal cases that you've been dealing with, Evangeline. And then, Betty, I want us to close out with some discussion on gentrification, which is another form of theft in another way. Go ahead.
So some of the personal cases that we've been dealing with, we have one with an African gentleman named Adadule Drame. He was just defrauded out of his home by a man named Anthony Guscott. Anthony Guscott is 40 years old. He has over 30 deeds. In his affidavits, he attests in all of the complaints against him that he is acting as a mortgage broker, right? He's going in and saying that he is negotiating with these people on behalf of the bank. This is all criminal. And so we have the evidence of what is occurring. We are working to get before the investigators to turn over the evidence that we have of racketeering, right? Because what we do know is that when there are patterns of crime, it tolls the statute of limitations, and they have to go in and investigate. But what we saw that happened in the San Fransoni case was because there was no eyes on it. That man got away with stealing over 250 properties in Brooklyn. Okay, with the excuse of they were not able to prove that these homes were worth more than $50,000.
Wow.
Right? And so we have been very, very mindful to focus on the legal part. A lot of people are like, why you're not out? We don't see you rallying and protesting, because we had to pivot and we had to go and lock in and learn and understand, how do you find the patterns of crime, so that the DA can't tell us this is now past the statute of limitations, we can't do anything. Because where there is a pattern of crime, they must do something. And when presented properly with the evidence, they have to do something. We also have a man named Alan J. Weintraub, who is an attorney who is writing mortgages without a license. And he has been doing this over and over and over and over again, unlicensed, changing up the LLCs. At first, he was following some of the rules, but it got so good to him and nobody stopped him that now he just has gone crazy with it. He has over 100 properties in his possession, constantly defrauding people. He'll show up as the attorney for the other side, and then he'll become your attorney. And the next thing you know, you're defrauded out of your property. Churches are being taken all over the city by this man, Alan J. Weintraub. And he's the one who took the properties of Miss Florence Litchmore Smith, the viral video that went around where we were, battling for the possession of her residence, right? He took 2 of her residences. And so this is something that is pervasive. But the worst part of it is that while they're fighting to prove ownership, the way they are fast-tracked out which will almost mean they will never be back in those properties once they're evicted, because you have to have possession in order to fight. And once families are displaced and uprooted, where do they go, right? And so we have Carmela Charrington, 212 Jefferson Avenue, facing eviction. She's one of our lead organizers and advocates. She's very outspoken, does a lot of work for everyone. And she's currently facing eviction and was not given a stay by the court. She was railroaded by Robin Shears, who has to be held accountable for what she's done. Yeah, she's a judge, for what she's done, a Black judge, right? And this is it's really sickening what it is. And for me, because I'm dealing with this every day and I'm in the courts, I'm in landlord-tenant court in the morning. In the afternoon, we're in Supreme Court. We're over in bankruptcy. We're over in the appellate, right? Seeing this is traumatic. It does something to you. I don't think I'll ever be the same after this. The amount of loss. Last week, there was an eviction in Queens where they sent in a bomb unit, battering rams, to take a woman out of her house with no marshal present, no warrant of eviction, just the police and the moving company. Right? And so this is the type of occupation that we're under. And the police are not supposed to be involved in executing evictions, but it's happening. We have recorded it. We have the proof of what is happening all over the city. and something has to be done. The governor, I wish Delgado wouldn't have dropped out the race, because this governor is showing who she is.
Mhm.
Right? She refuses to give an eviction moratorium. She won't even answer us. She won't even give a response. And this is not only happening in New York City, but it's across the state. And so we are in a state of emergency as a people. I was at a thing with Esmeralda Simmons and Roger Green over the weekend, and I wanted to understand when they talk about worker cooperatives. Do you see what they're doing in Mitchell-Lama? They're forcing the people out of Mitchell-Lamas all across the city. People own their units, are being forced out through these same type of systems that used to work, but they don't work anymore. And they're just stealing the properties everywhere. And now they're talking about, oh, we think that the solution is worker cooperatives. When was the last time you went into Supreme Court? When was the last time you went into landlord-tenant court? City and state employees don't live in New York anymore. They live in Jersey and Connecticut and Delaware, right? In transit, they call them transit refugees because they commute from New Jersey, Connecticut, and the outer boroughs because they cannot afford to live here. And so we're not going to be here if something is not done. We are in a state of emergency.
Because of you, we are going to be here, and we're going to
Yes.
win this battle. So I just want to let people know we're going to win this battle. And the community land trust and worker cooperatives are cool, but it's not an answer to deed theft. This is what you're doing is critical. We got a few minutes left. I want you to give them contact information. But Betty, before we go, talk a little bit about the impact of gentrification. You know, deed theft is a serious, serious issue. Gentrification is having a similar impact in getting us, out. And gentrification is an issue because I know I've been all over the country talking about it. I've been at forums where 10, 15 different states. We're honored to say we've been at a forum in Newark where 10 state representatives were talking about the impact of gentrification on their neighborhood. We were the only ones to say, we stopped it. There's no gentrification in East New York. Sister Betty?
Well, first of all, I want to talk about some of the solutions of different organizations. One of them is the People's Senate coming out of the Spirit of Mandela initiative, We Charge Genocide. Want everybody to go to the Spirit of Mandela and look for the We Charge Genocide July 4th convention that's coming. Charles also is working on a Black Power blueprint politically, and he's trying to organize a party that truly represents the working class people.
That's right.
Within the concept of gentrification, however, most of the cities that are having this issue, if you go back to the Kerner report that happened after the rebellion of the 60s, one of the major recommendations in the Kerner report was to destroy the cohesive communities that were coming out of what they called the Black ghettos, to disrupt and break up these intergenerational organizing that took place because we had been in certain neighborhoods for 3 and 4 and 5 generations. And this is what's happening across America. In California, one of the oldest African communities, during the fires, the forest fires, burnt out totally. They had foresight to have insurance. The insurance companies were not made or forced to reimburse them. So 2 years later, they still have not had their homes returned. That's a pattern. The majority of the people, wherever we are in these inner cities, as we are being gentrified out, we're ending up in these ecological travesties. North Carolina floods, St. Louis floods. So we're deliberately being geared and steered in the direction of areas where our lives are at risk and where there's not enough of an infrastructure to compensate. And at the same time, the federal government is doing away with FEMA. But the hope is, and I want to give credit to the people in P.O.W.E.R, the Black Power Blueprint in St. Louis. I recommend everybody study it. And I recommend everybody go back to the convention, the Black Convention of 1972, where Black people identified what they had to do within their infrastructure. And if you look at that, you'll see a lot of parallels between what Charles and I are doing right now. Thanks for the opportunity to speak, Charles.
Well, we want to thank both of you so much. And, you know, we have a very, and there's no indicators to validate my optimism, but I believe, and I have a strong belief. I know one thing, no form of our oppression is permanent.
That's it.
It is temporary. And you see what's happening in the world, the rise of the Sahel Revolution in West Africa, the BRICS group that's saying later for the American dollar, and we're going to do our own banking system. The international, there's a connection to this stuff. Internationally, the American empire is dying, and the American dollar is being devalued. But we got to realize we're in the belly of this beast. So dying, we need what you're doing in the meantime. This is our in the meantime strategy. And it's all connected. That's why, Betty, it was so important to be on here, to connect it to what Omali Yeshitela is doing. And we can connect the National Black Radical Political Congress that we're doing. We're going to be running black radicals across the country to deal with issues, because the question is power.
Yes.
So we said black power in the 60s. We did the black, but we didn't get the power. And the shame, the biggest battle we having is against neo-colonial black puppets.
Yes.
The 57th Assembly District, Hakeem Jeffries was the assembly person. Letitia James was the council person. Laurie Cumbo later became the council person. Crystal Hudson, the council person. And guess what? When they first came in, 72% black, 9% white. Now it's 32% black and 38% white. And they got Hakeem thinking he's some great whatever in Washington. So my sister, you got a minute to do a closing piece with both of you. Take a minute each. We want to thank you. We're going to have you back again. There was a lot to this. This tape here, we got to send it all over, because it's a model. You didn't just talk about the problem. You talked about solutions. Betty offered solutions. Your solution is getting the DAs to work, getting the district attorney work, getting the city mayor to work, and establish now an office of deed theft. And these are the things. And you've helped a lot of people, saved a lot of people. We saved a lot of people in New York. So we'll start with you for a minute, Evangeline, and then Betty, you can bring us home.
Yes. So as we close out, I just want people to follow us on Instagram at Stop Deed Theft. Inbox us if you need our assistance or, any type of help. But I also want to encourage all homeowners to estate plan. Make sure you are putting your home in a living trust. Make sure that you are leaving a little note on your home. Do not pay off your mortgage and sit there with no note, so that you're protected. Those are two key ways to protect your home.
And say your how they get in touch with you again a little slower.
You can follow us on Instagram at Stop Deed Theft. Stop Deed Theft.
Sister Betty?
I want to give a shout out to WBAI, because they've been on top of this. They've given us all a chance to voice the crisis and solutions to the crisis. But the other thing I want to say is make the road by walking. This organization has lawyers in practice. They are their own liberators. As Jalil Montakim said, they are learning to be their own lawyers. You should join this coalition.
Thank you.
I want to thank both of you so much. And tomorrow from 5 to 6 p.m., we're going to be on WBAI on our program, Speaking Truth to Power. And we're going to have Ambassador Yuri Gala Lopez from Cuba. And he's going to bring us he's going to give us an update on Cuba and how the resilient people of Cuba will not be defeated. They will not surrender. So join us tomorrow.
Yes, we just want to thank you for being on our program. You know, they have these labels and designations, and they say March is Women's History or Herstory Month. We don't limit ourselves to that, but certainly as this month of March is coming to a close, the two of you are great models of the work that women do, the sacrifices that make, the intelligence and the determination to move our people forward. So we want to thank you so much for being our special guest today and enlightening our people and giving them more information, particularly on the issue of how to stop deed theft.
And what we say every week as we go off, the truth shall set you free, and power is the great equalizer. Black power.
Black power.
Black power.